We'll have in the Pacific Tropical Storm Celia, which continues to weaken, but slowly. It is not moving into a terribly hostile environment, and so the weakening process is slow and gradual. Here you see the information from the National Hurricane Center's 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time advisory. At that time, Tropical Storm Celia was estimated to be centered around latitude 22.2 north, longitude 116.8 west. That put the center of Tropical Storm Celia about 435 miles west of Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Maximum sustained winds still about 40 miles per hour, which, as you probably know, means it's just a minimal tropical storm, just barely strong enough to be a tropical storm, moving toward the west at about 11 miles per hour. Estimated central pressure around 29.62 inches or 1,003 millibars. It's moving out over an area where the water is getting progressively cooler, so that robs it of a heat energy source. But the upper level atmosphere is not really so unfavorable. There's not much in the way of shearing, which typically, of course, is one of those things that rapidly will weaken a tropical system. But because the upper level winds are not shearing the convection so much, the weakening process is going to be slow. Nonetheless, it is expected to dissipate in about 48 hours. And this color-enhanced infrared satellite view shows the convection having fired up somewhat again. It has diminished, though, considerably in contrast to what was seen, say, yesterday at this time. There is still a very well-organized cloud shield associated with it, but Tropical Storm Celia is heading out of the picture, heading away from land areas and continuing that weakening trend. Here we are a little bit more to the south and east of where Celia is. This is the warm Pacific region to the west of Central America, to the south of 12 to 24 hours, but this is climatologically favored, this area. So as the Hurricane Center keeps tabs on it, we'll keep you updated as well. Let's take a look now at the upper level winds across the Atlantic Basin. And we find, as you take a look here at the wind direction, the clockwise flow here over the southwestern Caribbean, that's an indication that at the upper levels of the atmosphere in this area there is an anticyclonic flow or a upper level high. And as you probably remember, that is favorable for the development of a tropical system, to have an upper level high pressure area to evacuate the air that's flowing in at the surface levels into the tropical system. It has to go somewhere as it reaches the center of the storm and rises toward the upper levels of the atmosphere. But at this point where there's an upper level high, there's no tropical system beneath it to be enhanced or developed. So nothing developing there. Out over the waters of the Atlantic, where the tropical waves continue to make their way westward as they come off the coast of Africa and head toward the Caribbean, we're seeing little in the way of significant waves, and they are sweeping along in these strong westerly winds, or easterly winds, I should say, going from the east toward the west. Notice out in the Atlantic, big subtropical high pressure ridge, and the waves are skimming along the southern periphery of that high pressure area. Let's take a closer look here at the Gulf of Mexico, where high pressure, weak high pressure, is in control. There is a great deal of convection over the state of Florida as the heat of the land causes the hot, moist, the warm, moist, unstable air to rise, and you also have the sea breeze added into it. A lot of thunderstorms over the state of Florida today, but they're not associated with any sort of a tropical system. Also getting some showers through the Bahamas and firing up over the land areas through Cuba and back over toward Puerto Rico, but no precipitation to speak of across the Gulf of Mexico. That's quiet. Across the Caribbean, also pretty quiet conditions. There have been some showers enhanced across the Lesser Antilles as mid and upper level trough continues to make its way westward. It has enhanced the showers and the convection there. But we're not seeing any significant tropical waves, nothing at the surface really showing any signs of developing. We do see them continuing to sweep off the coast of Africa. As you may remember, about 100 of these waves come across the Atlantic from Africa during the course of the year, and just very few of them really amount to anything. Right now there's some convection over the eastern Atlantic to the south of the Cape Verde Islands, and the area will continue to make its way on westward, this showing no signs of development over the next 12 to 24 hours. So the tropics are rather quiet, but we look back toward the United States and we do have the potential for some heavy weather with a couple of severe thunderstorm watches in effect and severe thunderstorm warnings in effect, as well as a tornado warning in effect for some counties in northern Indiana. We'll show you those in just a moment. Part of the reason for the heavy weather through the Ohio Valley is outflow boundaries from earlier thunderstorms. During the early morning hours, you had some heavy weather in the Chicago area. Some of that cool air has rushed on eastward and southward, and it has helped to lift the warm, moist, unstable air across the Ohio Valley, where there are severe thunderstorm watches in effect now for portions of southern Michigan, northern Indiana, northwestern Ohio, as well as portions of eastern Kentucky on down into eastern Tennessee. And want to let you know that there is a tornado warning continuing in effect now for portions of St. Joseph County and southeastern LaPorte County, that in in northwestern Indiana. You will be able to see it. You can see it in this radar view, but we want to give you a closer view of that. Again, a tornado warning in effect for southeastern LaPorte County and also St. Joseph County. St. Joseph County, of course, is where South Bend is. And Doppler radar had detected at 4:25 local time a possible tornado developing and moving to the east at about 35 miles per hour toward the communities or the cities of North Liberty, Lakeville, South Bend, Wakerton, and South Center. This is a dangerous storm, and we certainly advise you to take shelter immediately if you're in the path of this possible tornado. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue in effect also in Indiana for Marshall, East Stark, and Fulton counties, and in Tennessee. As you can see here in eastern Tennessee, Carter, Sullivan, and Washington counties under severe thunderstorm warnings as cells move on off toward the southeast at about 15 miles per hour. Some heavy weather over southeast Georgia, Brantley County, western Glenn County, with severe thunderstorms moving slowly toward the east, only about 5 miles per hour. Heavy rain through Brantley and western Glenn. Dodge County in southeast Georgia, severe thunderstorm moving south at about 10 miles per hour, and lots of heavy weather across Florida. Weather Center's next.
Advisories are in effect as blistering heat grabs headlines across most of the U.S. Find out if your area will be getting a break. Watch Weather Center after your
It's time for Storm Watch now at the Weather Channel, where we'll look at the active stormy weather we're experiencing around the country tonight. We'll also talk tropics with our tropical update. As we begin, we'll look first of all at Tropical Storm Celia. It's still around, but fading fast. Its winds around 40 miles per hour now. It's still moving and moving on, as I said, about west at 10 miles per hour. Pressure 2965 inches of mercury. It's now 500 miles west of Cabo San Lucas. Now you can see, like right there where it was first classified as a tropical storm, and you can kind of follow its path to its present position. It did kick up waves quite a bit around the southern tip of Baja, but now it's moving further away and hopefully will continue to fade in the next 12 to 24 hours. One way you can tell it's not nearly as active, you can still see the low pressure, the counterclockwise motion here, but some of the convection is dying. Now, when you take an infrared satellite picture from outer space, what it does is it takes the coldest cloud tops and assigns them those colors. For example, when you have pretty high cloud tops, they're in the orange or the red shades. Kind of the blue there, and even some of that blue is fading. So the actual storminess, or the convection as it's called, is not as dramatic with this. So it is fading away and probably won't be around a lot longer as far as any kind of a classified system. Looking elsewhere, kind of south of Acapulco, another area being watched. Again, nothing classified here yet, not even considered a depression presently, but an area of disturbed weather worthy of being monitored. We'll stay on top of that for you here at the Weather Channel, and of course we'll bring you information as it comes along. Looking across the Atlantic and the Gulf, a lot of spots where it's not super favorable now for development. You have to have a number of things. You have to have, water of a temperature threshold about 80 degrees or greater. You have that present. You also have to have a pre-existing spin of some kind, like a wave, which we've been seeing some of. You also have to have, way up there, winds of a proper type. For example, you have to have high pressure aloft. If you have what's called cyclonic flow or low pressure aloft, it would work to shear or rip up a system. That's why we show you this, tropical upper level winds. These don't show you the winds that shove the systems around. These show you winds that create spots where it will be a good or a bad spot for development. Now, it would be a good spot if you had high pressure aloft and area of disturbed weather beneath it. That, in other words, it could spin up, the low pressure could continue to intensify in a fairly stable environment. Not the case here, where you can see we do have a bit of anticyclone, or rather some cyclonic flow, trying to say right there. In other words, it's going, this right here is an area of high pressure, that specific spot right there. But we do have some spots where it's not so favorable, where we do have a bit of low pressure, like right there. That area right there, as that continues to spin, anything in this area as it comes on in here, we've encountered a spot where we would encounter some problems and get anything going because the way that the winds are. Low pressure works against development. and that's the spot there aloft where that would not be the best situation for that to develop. Some spots are around, though, where, you know, a little high pressure, for example, there, but it would have to actually go through a pretty rough spot now to make it on into the Caribbean and on into the Gulf. So not incredibly favorable. Also in the Gulf itself, we have a bit of high pressure aloft and closer to the surface. That's why things are pretty quiet in the Gulf right now. Not looking for anything really expected here in the next day or so, at least the next 24 hours. Look at some areas of convection. Again, some of the islands seeing some storminess, and we continue to watch waves, but again, nothing of great promise presently. We're just monitoring these areas. Looking toward the coast of Africa, another wave about to make an exit. We talk about Cape Verde season because the Cape Verde Islands are here just off the coast of Africa, and this is one of the spots where we often see as a source region of waves that come across the Atlantic. Again, we showed you some spots with some low pressure aloft that would work to shear a system apart. So right now, not an incredibly favorable time for these waves to have a real lengthy life and make it toward the Gulf or even to an active spot in the Atlantic. So again, not much right now of real great promise across the Atlantic. Looking at the contiguous 48 now, tonight we've had some problems with some severe weather reports. Incredible wind has been one of the big stories of the day. Now, there has been some incredible hail, too. Even some reported around Hamilton County, outside of Cincinnati, but reported 1.75 inches. Also, incredible wind, again, has been the big thing around Columbus, around Van Wert. Like around Van Wert, we had some 70, 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Even in Montgomery County, very, very windy. Windy in the Carolinas, too. Where's the active weather tonight? Well, you can see it's pushing on toward Pittsburgh. In the southeast, a few sprinkles and storms remain, and even a bit wet in the southwest. Could still see a risk of some strong storms where you see the orange shading, or risk of severe weather where you see the red there, including where we have a severe thunderstorm watch presently in the yellow shading here, including Cleveland and southward into Ohio and also into bits of Pennsylvania here shortly. Here come the storms. Pretty sizable line now on through Columbus, so things are quieter. Storms exist, but eventually, again, kind of moving into parts of West Virginia and into Pittsburgh. We'll see a line of storms coming through here shortly. Again, wind has been a big, big thing with this. A lot of wind damage reported. Getting quieter shortly into parts of Indiana, including around Indianapolis. Close-up vantage point shows the strength of that line. Again, some hail can be expected, but the wind will be the big major factor. It's a little bit stormy in the Carolinas, quite windy here in north parts of Georgia, but earlier some wind damage, quieting down a bit. Florida getting a bit quieter. Around Tampa, we had some pretty hefty rains earlier, but now not much left. In the southwest, we've still got our storms too, close to Phoenix, at least south of town, and even some more just to our north. Some pretty startling areas of storminess here. That's a look at the big storms across the country. We'll talk about weathers tomorrow next.
The heat is on as temperatures continue soaring across most of the U.S. Is relief in sight for your work week? Find out on Weather Center after your local forecast.